Well, I had been working at Bell Labs in Murray Hill, New Jersey since 1975. And from the beginning of that work, certain kinds of linguistic data were crucial. For example, we did approaches to speech synthesis that involved putting together bits and pieces of speech from an appropriately balanced collection of read sentences. And we worked on speech recognition systems that were based on collecting large volumes of training material. And increasingly, we also became interested in, originally for the purpose of text analysis for speech synthesis, but later for other reasons, information extraction and so on, we became interested in doing text analysis and doing it on the basis of models constructed from large collections of text. So we began subscribing to newswires and we began collecting dictionaries and so on. All of that activity in those days was fairly expensive and difficult, more so than today. The internet didn't exist. Everyone who was involved in doing things of that kind spent an awful lot of time or spent an awful lot of money trying to obtain those materials and then to turn them into something useful. And so we said, well, maybe we should, cooperate and trade and get some other people together. Why don't IBM and AT&T form a consortium of some kind, an agreement to share data, and then we'll all save money and get farther faster. Mm-hmm. Towards the end of my time at AT&T, I believe that Charles and others at DARPA had gotten wind of the idea that perhaps this consortium could be partly devoted to linguistic data for human language technology programs. And I remember there was a meeting to discuss it associated with a conference where Dave Pallett from NIST and George Doddington was there and Fred Jelinek. And Charles asked us to put together a white paper explaining how what a linguistic data consortium would do, why it was a good idea, how it would be organized, and so on. And so we did that and gave it to Charles, and it won the lottery, so to speak. That is, it was one of the 10 or so projects selected to be government, university, industry, pre-competitive consortia.
I started when LDC was located at Williams Hall on 36th and Spruce Street, and I believe consisted of 3 rooms and about maybe 6 or 7 full-time employees. So it was a very small organization that meant to just collect and distribute already produced data. We did not do our own research at that time.
In terms of the LDC itself and what we were doing, initially we were supposed to be just a sort of a transfer point between, sort of a common point of communication between creators of data, customers of language technology, and developers of language technology. But between those 3 things, we were just supposed to coordinate the movement of priorities, the movement of funding, the movement of data between the 3. The people who were interested in getting the research solutions created would manage the funding. The people and then we would sort of make sure that some of that funding got to people who would actually create the data, collect or record what was going to be needed.
Within the first year I've been there, we started doing our own research project when one of the subcontractors did not deliver. And I believe the sponsors liked the result and started asking us to do more and more. And that's when we started producing our own data.
There was a collection involving transcribed telephone speech in a number of languages. And the original plan was that a platform for telephone collection that had been developed at Texas Instruments would be sent to this site and used to make this collection.
Hello?
Hello,
Hi.
this is Lois.
Hi, this is Lisa.
And I called, you know, from the TI database calling.
Did I reach the Dallas area?
You sure did.
Yeah.
To whom am I speaking?
My name is Fernando.
Hi, Fernando. I'm Bill.
Hey, how's it going? Do you work for TI?
Yeah. Where are you calling from?
North Carolina State University.
Hello. What is your favorite food for a dinner party?
Hello? Hi.
Hi, my name is Leslie.
Hi, I'm Jennifer.
And where are you from?
Pennsylvania?
Oh, nice. I'm from Dallas, Texas.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
This is a university site, and the project was turned over to a master's student who had excellent technical capabilities but had never really run anything on this scale before, and furthermore was, taking 4 courses a semester and busy in other respects, and there was really nobody else paying attention to it. And it took the student a while to figure out how to use the platform and get it connected. It took the student a while to figure out how to start advertising for people to participate in the program. And when the calls started coming in, it took a while for this master student to get around to sort of checking on the calls. And because one of the ways that we were rewarding people for participating was by giving them free overseas long-distance telephone calls of up to half an hour, it turned out that a very large majority of all the calls that were recorded, and there weren't enough of them anyway, were fraudulent. Mm-hmm. That is, they weren't in the language they were supposed to be, they weren't to the place they were supposed to have been gone to, and it was the same person, or a small number of people over and over again making these calls in the wrong language to the wrong place. So after a certain amount of anguish and head scratching and back and forth, we decided to try to take it over and do it ourselves. And so we got the collection platform back, we set the collection platform up, we hired a couple of extra people, and Jack Godfrey, who was here then, spent a good deal of his effort, trying to make sure that the thing would work.
I remember when I first, within my first year at LDC, one of my first voyages outside the office was to go to the National Institute of Standards and Technology, where a lot of the corpus development and corpus publication had initially been done, back in the late 80s and early 90s when the LDC was just being founded. And I remember on my first visit there to meet with them, because I knew I was going to be, everyone knew I was going to be working with them very closely over the years. They were in the middle of this evaluation project called resource management. And it involved people reading text from prompting screens. They were reading sentences out loud. It was prompted speech in a particular domain of, sort of a telling a machine what to do or something like that, right? And the issues that came up were very striking, because very often the prompting text, which was, the right answer, isn't what the person actually said. And I thought, well, now how are you going to score that? Right now, all they could do was, take the prompt as the right answer and then score it on that basis. But it really opened my eyes to, the need for manual annotation on this stuff to really, and very close attention to detail that was technically informed, but manually based, human sort of sociolinguistically based, in fact.
So when I came here, the most important goal that Mark gave me was to develop the annotation part of LDC. Until then, I think annotation had mostly been things like auditing for telephone call quality, and also segmentation and transcription. I mean, for purposes of time alignment, segmentation and transcription. And that's really all they did, but Mark correctly guessed, or knew, that annotation was going to be a growth industry in our field. And so he asked me to try to work on growing that. So that was one task. I think another task was to rebuild to further build the collection infrastructure, because at that point it was pretty, it required manual effort, a lot of manual effort at the time. We were hand loading VHS cassettes into recorders. That's how we got broadcast news back then. And we needed to move to something more automated.
The first thing we actually did ourselves in terms of collection, of actually creating the data on our own, was the collection of Newswire. And shortly after that, we started to do telephone conversation collection, and then we started to do broadcast collection. And every one of those things became not easy exactly, but almost routine. You know, it's just we got better at it over time, and it just became easier for us to do it ourselves wherever possible. And of course, creating transcriptions from recordings rather than having other people do that for us. That's been up and down. You know, we're actually now back to contracting out to do transcriptions and so forth. Contracting out to do original data collection. You know, we'll have other people record off of broadcast channels, especially when those are channels that don't actually reach this part of the world necessarily, or something like that. So compared to the first couple of years where we were just really a sort of a point of communication between other parties doing most of the work.
Well, yeah, I guess it's interesting to look at our catalog and see that, you know, the first data for the first few years of LDC, the early mid-90s, for the most part, it was data that was donated to us. Yes. And then once, you know, the projects got underway here, I'm not sure what the latest statistics are, but most of what's in our catalog and our, you know, the new data that people are asking for was actually developed here.
Yeah, it's about 2/3 now. About 2/3 internal, 1/3 donations. And it varies year to year. Some years it's quite the opposite.
Well, the scale of resources that people use continues to grow. In fact, it grows nearly exponentially. And although the amount of data that people want and the amount of data that people can process grows very rapidly, and although we've done a pretty good job of reducing the costs of producing data, it's very difficult to reduce the costs of producing data as fast as the demand for more data increases. Mm-hmm. And of course, we try to make up for that by using more and more found data and by wringing as much cost as possible out of the data production pipeline. But I think it remains a challenge.
A year ago, we had 2 research assistants review about 100 different social networking sites to understand what kinds of activities the sites allow and what kinds of incentives the sites use to try to encourage people to keep coming back to the site. And the motivation for doing that was this recognition that some people will spend countless hours and contribute very large amounts of data to some cause just because they think it's a worthy cause without monetary compensation. And of course, some people won't contribute for only monetary compensation. They need some other kind of compensation. And if you only rely on monetary compensation, then you're only getting data from people who need monetary compensation or who want it. And so you're actually biasing your sample by doing that. So the idea with this study is that we would try to take advantage of this potentially limitless supply of energy that people are willing to invest and direct just a little bit of it toward our goals, which are to improve language technologies, and then hoping that improving those language technologies improves understanding and improves the quality of life on the planet. So that's, I think, a worthy goal. But to be able to accomplish it, we sort of have to understand what motivates people to spend countless numbers of hours on things like social networking sites. And that was the function of that work. So those are a couple examples where we spent our own money on things which we think are going to have long-term benefit, either for the HLT community or for the broader community.